Good evening and welcome to the September 16th, 2024 Yukon Planning Commission meeting. Will you please all bow your heads for a prayer for Mr. Geist? We all stand together and then we'll do the flag salute afterwards.
Father, we want to thank you. Thank you for the freedoms you've given us. Thank you for the wonderful life we have here. And God, I ask that you would be with all those who are protecting us, with the teachers and with our community and those who lead. Give us wisdom tonight as we make decisions. We give you the glory, honor, and praise in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. Salute the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call the roll, please.
Wright,
Here.
Geist,
Here.
Clark,
Here.
Jones,
Here.
Knuckles.
Here.
If you guys had a chance to take a look at the minutes from last meeting, if have an approval to approve,
I'll make a motion to approve minutes from last month.
do I have a second?
Second.
Call the vote, please.
Wright,
Yes.
Geist,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Knuckles.
Yes.
Is there any visitors here in the audience today that are here to speak on a non-agenda item? If you are, please step forward and let us know. If there's no visitors in the audience for a non-agenda item, we'll move on to item 4, which is to hear a request by Purvi Patel of Wallace Design for a final plat of Westport Office Park at 907 Westport Boulevard. Ma'am, will you please state your name and address?
Yes, sir. Purvi Patel with Wallace Design Collective. The address is 410 North Walnut, Oklahoma City. And glad to see you all again, third meeting in a row. We're here in front of you today for a final plat for a 2.4 acre tract of land, which is zone CG. We're not requesting a change of zoning, just to do the final plat so development can occur per the city code requirements. We are proposing an office park, which will have business, professional, and medical offices. We propose to meet all the setbacks in the CG code. The one that I would like to specifically point out is the northern setback. So the side setback in a CG district when you're abutting residential is 2 feet for every 1 foot in height in a building. So the buildings we're looking at are approximately 22.2 feet tall, so our minimum setback from the north will be about 45 feet. In addition, we'll be meeting the landscape buffer requirement, which is a site-proof screen plus landscaping, and we'll be planting 2.5 caliber trees every 25 feet on center as required by the code. So those trees at planting would be anywhere from 10 to 13 feet tall, depending on the species. The city of Yukon does have a approved tree list, and we're looking at oak and maple trees to plant. We did reach out to the neighbors that abut our property and then some for the entire 14-acre tract. We heard back from one gentleman. I was able to explain the project over the phone to him, and what he abuts the property off of Travertine. He owns it, him and his family own the 3 lots. There's 1.5 lot that abuts us, so I explained to him exactly what we would be doing screening-wise and so forth, and I answered his questions. We sent a neighbor letter, and in there's a project in Bethany. The address is 4105 North Council. It's very similar. It's by the same development. In that project, you'd come into a parking lot in the middle, and the buildings are on the side. And I have a preliminary site plan to show you all tonight. This is not the final version. It's just a preliminary, so you can see. But we have the buildings set in the middle with a drive aisle across. Right now, these buildings are over 60 feet from the property line. This red dashed line here is that 45-foot line that we have, a 45-foot building setback. At the very bottom, you can see what these buildings will look like. The masonry, single-story office buildings. Sorry.
No, that's good.
So that's just an example of what they had done at Bethany and plan on doing at this location as well. There'll be 8 buildings in total. The detention, initially we're expecting it to be in the northeast corner of the site, but after some preliminary grading on the site, they will be on the west side along Westport. And this drive is aligning with the drive to the west across the street, so we were able to make that adjustment as well to ensure that there's easy and safe traffic movement.
To confirm, that's with the Vitality Mill drive?
Yes, sir. So, happy to answer any questions you may have, and not sure if anyone's here in the public to speak about the project as well.
Commissioners, do you guys have any questions for her before we open up for discussion? Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? And if, raise hands, how many are there? Just one? Okay, you're up first. Ma'am, will you please state your name and your address for the record?
Good evening. My name is Amy Walters. I live at 915 Stone Creek Boulevard. And just a quick question, how far were you saying as far as the structures from the fence line? If you can repeat that.
They would be at least 45 feet away. Right now, we're looking at approximately 60 feet.
Okay. And a question for the Planning Commission. What is the difference between a C3 and a CG? As far as,
We would need to reference the code, I
okay,
would think.
I'm just curious.
I don't wanna say the
Mitchell,
wrong
can you
thing.
speak to that? You're Danielle
Between
can?
C3 and CG.
So our C3 was from our previous code, which is considered a restricted commercial, and then that is actually now CG, which is the commercial general. So they're equally the same. The differences, there could be some differences as far as allowable uses and things like that. But that's kind of what the C3 went to as the CG.
Okay, okay, so one and the same.
Yes.
Okay. Well, what I'll speak to tonight then, just a little bit of history from January 30th of 2019, a long time ago, and a whole new planning commission. But at that time, Westport neighborhood, behind it was a C3, which today would be the CG. During that time, one of our guests owned, well, she currently still owns that property. And with the development of that, she had to give up, or they extended, the Planning Commission during that time recommended that C3 zoning, while increasing a proposed landscape buffer, all of that land went from 25 feet to 100 feet, which means our guest that's in attendance today, Bonnie Opitz, owns that property, and it cost her approximately 12 acres of land when the zoning went from 25 feet to 100 feet. As a property owner, she had to give up a lot of land. And today, her home backs right up to this property, which would be the C3 CG today. And I think out of courtesy to her and what she had to give up, and again, I know this is a whole new planning commission, but as a property owner, she had to give up a lot. And today, I'm gonna ask for the same courtesy being granted to her as a property owner, that development follows what happened in Westport. From the 25, they extended it to 100 feet. So just offering her the same courtesy in what she had had to give up, the same courtesy from her property today, that nothing is built 100 feet from what is now her fence line. And that's all I have.
I'm a bit confused, so if you don't mind clarifying.
Okay.
Which piece of property are you
Okay.
talking, so her property is zoned the same?
Okay, she owned, she owned property, or owns property now, that is a C3. In 2019, it was a C3. Today, I found out C3 is the same as CG. Bonnie owned property, and the council decided in January of 2019, originally it was a 25 feet zoning that people would only, or construction would begin 25 feet from the fence line. At that meeting with the Planning Commission, and I have my Yukon progress, they decided to extend that for property owners so things weren't built right up on the fence line. They extended that to 100 feet. And so Bonnie Opitz being the property owner, that cost a lot of money out of her pocket. Today, her home in Stone Creek is there, this development would be right behind Bonnie's house and my house. I'm thinking the courtesy that was extended to property owners in Westport in 2019, I would like that same courtesy given to her as a homeowner and myself in the Stone Creek neighborhood. So what you did in Westport, I'm asking the same for Stone Creek as a courtesy. So, and then the screening, I'm not sure how the screening, what that is. If you can elaborate on that.
The code requires a site-proof screening, so it'll be most likely a wooden fence, at least 6 foot tall, and then trees on our side of it. So there are some property owners that already have a wooden fence there. There's some that have no fence and one that has an iron rod fence. I think that may be you. So we've got to, at the site plan process, we will communicate with you and see how best to work out that site-proof screening.
And again, honestly, I think as far as the planning for this, I mean, I think they're going to be great neighbors, all of that. I think it'll be good. The only thing I can say is, I just think in Westport, the mark was moved from 25 feet to 100. And again, I would like that same courtesy for Stone Creek. So that's what I'm asking of the commission tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle, if Ms. Opitz's land was zoned that, I mean, grandfathers, can you speak to it, Mitch? It seems like that stuff should be, like we changed the code.
Okay, what she's referencing is what we call the TIF area or the Raptor property, which Opitz is part of. That is along Vandament. That tract, when we were looking at developing it and future development, where we're talking about possibly big boxes, maybe hotels, there is along the western boundary of Westport, there is a difference in grade. So that was taken into consideration, and then the thought was with dealing with the owners at the time was a buffer in there to set those buildings, those larger structures away from those property owners, as well as providing some landscaping and green buffer because of that difference in topography.
So code wouldn't change, it was just for that,
That was part of the working, trying to get a buffer in there because of elevation differences.
just for that piece of land, or that plot?
There was a lot of track along the Frisco Ridge, along Frisco Road.
Okay.
Frisco Ridge, as well as that. There were some setbacks because of flood plains, as well as topography changes, as well as the thought of big boxes that may be in there and getting that distance away from them.
Yeah,
So
having
C3 wasn't changed at all?
Actually, if I remember right, that property is C5 at the time that it was done.
Well, and wasn't it when we changed the code, it was more or less to get rid of the specifics of C3? Like you can only have A, B, C, and D when maybe you want X of a business that would normally be, like it modernized it, if it will.
Well, that'd be a good one for Danielle to answer on that, but I'm just talking about the 2019, what was going on that time.
Okay.
Mitchell, how that property, because I live over in that area, that property on the backside that where we're talking about, it's how much it is higher. I mean, how much higher is it? I know you're
I
talking
don't
farming.
remember.
It's-
There's quite a bit of difference in portions of that as you go along that western boundary. And remember, there's a TIF that's setting in place, and that was part of the deal with the city at the time to make sure that those structures were not on top of those houses, because if you got right up against them, and the amount of dirt that needs to be moved to balance the site would be quite significant along that western boundary there, or eastern boundary of the property where they're talking about.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to speak on this matter?
I'd like to speak again if I may.
Yes, ma'am. Come on up.
just out of consideration from the council, our planning commission, CG is CG. We don't know what's gonna happen in Westport. It could be more of the same in Westport as far as what is built there. But it is CG and Stone Creek is CG. So if you'll just keep that in mind, because again, we may have the same type structure constructed in Westport. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Commissioners, do you guys have anything else?
Yep, just mention, just one quick question real quick. So there was a specific reason because of the elevation change that doesn't apply to this one. Is that what you're saying?
Because of it being located in a TIF, that was the reason that we discussed that. So we thought these large structures shouldn't be set on top of those houses.
Okay.
So that's why we tried to set them back, and that was part of the discussion at the time.
Okay.
When you say large structures, you're talking about multiple stories, right?
Could be multiple stories. We could have a hotel 4 stories, 5 stories. We could have a big box that has 40-foot walls. We were trying to make sure that we had enough buffer between the residents as well as Frisco to the north. There's a big detention pond in there too.
Okay.
Ms. Patel, do you mind, again, how tall did you say you were
The
planning
structure
on?
is to the tip of the roof would be 22.2 feet. Approximately, please don't.
Thank you. Yeah.
We understand.
If it's 22.4, you're in trouble.
Don't call it on that. Yes, Miss Amy, go ahead. Come back up here though,
Right.
yes.
So today, the CG would be multi-story, I mean, that's what it includes, correct? Multi-story,
No, I think with the tip that he's talking about for the
Okay.
area over by Westport, it had different requirements in it. Am I wrong?
right. But
So-
he's talking about big box, large, I was living in Westport at that time.
Yeah,
And-
it's not zoned for big boxes here where we're
Okay.
talking about.
Okay.
By Spring Creek.
Okay, but you could still, whatever CG is, as far as CG, let's say that this unit was going to be a bigger box or whatever, if it was, that would still,
We would still have a say on the final plat, if
right,
you will.
okay.
And they would have 2 foot per foot. So if they
Okay.
build a 40-foot tall
Okay.
thing, they would have to have 80 feet.
Okay.
And then if
Okay.
they build 50 feet, they'd have to be 100.
The
And-
code's already got things in
Okay.
place to where you can't go multi-story and you can't go big box
Okay.
in this area.
Okay,
It's a separate set of rules
Okay.
for over, where her land is.
okay, so that's not gonna happen behind Westport as far as I guess it would be at
Westport or
least,
Spring Creek.
in Westport, whenever Westport gets developed, or,
And we're not
just
privy
wouldn't
to
see.
all that
Okay.
information. I mean, we're just
Okay.
going off what
Okay.
Mitchell said here.
Okay.
But
Okay.
they made concessions for the neighborhoods
Right.
on that because you have to
Okay.
understand that's like by Frisco Road, so it's a little bit different traffic flow.
right.
So I think the code fits differently for that area than it does over here
Okay.
next to the neighborhood, if
Okay,
you will.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, Danielle?
The maximum build height for the CG district is 35 feet tall. So that would be the max that they could go.
And you're setting at 22 feet.
0.2.
Yes, ma'am. Step up. Just please state your name and your address.
Bonnie Opitz, 919 Stone Creek Boulevard. I just want to clarify something. So there is an easement there that's 10 foot, so is this another 45 foot past the easement, or are you including the easement behind my house?
So I believe there's a setback or an easement in the back of your rear lot, and then we have an additional 15-foot utility easement, but the 45 is from the property line south. So it
So it
encompasses the
includes the
easement. Yes, ma'am.
So then it's 45 feet from my fence, correct?
Yes. So, if this is your property line, right, the red is a property line, you have a 15-foot easement there, the same thing we do, but the 45 is measured from the red line.
Not from the easement.
No. It's from the property line.
I'd like it to
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you. Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else have anything further to add? I do not.
So I was just to clarify then, if I'm looking at it right then, with the 15-foot easement even, if they're gonna be set back 60 feet from that, then that will also be basically the setback distance that is required by a 22.2 foot tall building. It'll still be at 60 feet. It'll end up being the 45 feet from the easement that you were asking about, so.
Yes, sir. The setback is from the property line, not
Correct.
the easement line.
Correct.
But you're exceeding.
We're exceeding the 45-foot setback that would be required for a 22-foot building.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You good? All right. Anybody else? Do I have a motion?
In the case of the final plat application of Wallace Design Collective on behalf of Bryant Stephen Ventures LLC, we have read the staff report and received testimony at the public hearing. We find ourselves in agreement with the staff findings cited in the staff report. I move that this item be recommended for approval.
I'll second.
Call the vote, please.
Wright,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Knuckles,
Yes.
Geis,
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Good luck with your project. Thank you. Item number 5, to hear and request by Cannon Storage to vacate a PUD and return to CG Commercial General Zoning. Please state your name and your address, gentlemen.
Good evening. My name is Gary Lease. This is David Cannon, president of Cannon Storage Systems. We are from Lawton, Oklahoma, 2305 Southwest 11th. We represent not only Cannon Storage System, but also Clean Space Storage. Our request involves a piece of property, 4.5 acre section of land located at 301 South Yukon Parkway. That's currently under CG. Well, I think it's previously a C3. It's now CG. Is that correct? And under a previously proposed development, a PUD had been approved for that project. Our proposal was to construct a self-storage facility on this tract of land, since the base CG zoning permits personal storage or self-storage. The PUD really doesn't apply to the use of the land that we propose. So we want to go ahead and have the property rezoned to the base CG zoning and the PUD vacated. So, and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Commissioners, do you guys have any questions?
Beg pardon?
I'm sorry?
Oh, I thought you.
No, I asked the commissioners if they had any questions for you. I I got a big mouth, so I like to leave it up to them
That's
to talk
fine.
first,
Same
you
here.
know, so.
It originally had been done as a PUD, and it was, I'm trying to remember I read it earlier, it was a specific reason. What was the reason that it was originally in the PUD for the,
It was going to be I don't know if it was a multi-use or like a small retail center with multiple offices under the previous proposed development.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's good.
Jeff, this was
Oh,
something
I
that
see
we
it.
did.
That's right,
We
that's
talked
right.
about the drive. This was last year.
that's
that we
right, yeah, because they
approved.
were gonna do the drive on the side, that's right, okay.
I thought that site plan would help you, so.
I remember that, yes, it does. Now I remember. Yeah. Thank you.
You bet.
And this just is returning it to what it originally was, the CG, we don't need the
Just
special.
the base CG zoning,
Yeah.
that does require personal storage. There are a few exceptions or rules that we must comply to. I think it's a list of 4 or 5. They're listed in the documentation. And we will be complying with those, of course.
So, Daniel, had we changed the code before this, where it was back from where we had changed the verbiage with going from C3 to CG?
So whenever we did the code change, everything that was C3 went to CG. With this being in a PUD, it still had most likely some of those C3 components in it, because the PUD would govern over what the base zoning is.
That's correct. I believe some of the older documentation still denotes C3, which I think I questioned either you or Julie on that, and everything is reverted to the CG zoning, so.
Okay. Just to clarify, we're in the middle of a change, so it's like, where was it before? Where did we change to, and where are we at now? So.
Right.
You guys have any other questions?
So basically what we're needing to do is vacate the PUD, and then it will be, it's currently zone CGs, but we will vacate the current PUD because it no longer applies to our proposed use of the lands.
I will note this: the one thing that's different on this with the site plan is now we're going to have an entrance off of Yukon Parkway rather than when we were going to do the PUD.
Off industrial.
It was off industrial, and that made it really valuable for industrial to have that
Right.
that run through. And I think that's what
We,
was appealing.
we are
back
offering
then.
to construct a cul-de-sac at the end of Industrial Drive. that
Yeah,
was
and I'm
provided.
curious. So there would be entrance into the storage complex from industrial, so that could
I
eliminate.
don't
some
see
of
it
the-
unless the fire department requests a secondary entrance to the facility, which a lot of times they do, a crash gate or something like that, so.
So I didn't hear you. So you said yes. Or?
Only if the fire marshal requires a secondary exit. Sometimes they require a secondary exit into a self-storage facility. They simply call it a crash gate.
So what would the point be in the cul-de-sac if they don't require a second entry? Would you just
Just
dismiss
provide
the
a
cul-de-sac?
turnaround for the end of that street.
Huh?
Just provide a turnaround for the end of that street. Right now, it's a dead
On
end
into
street.
your property?
We'll be dedicating the right-of-way to the city. It will be built per city standards.
But unless it's required by the fire department, you're not planning on extending industrial, is that correct?
The question again?
Unless it's required by the fire marshal, you're not planning on extending industrial, is that correct?
Not extending, but we are providing the cul-de-sac.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regardless.
And I've already checked with the fire marshal. He agrees that a 40-foot radius on the cul-de-sac would be adequate for his firefighting vehicle. So I've already had him look at it, the engineer has looked at it, and they don't see any issues with it whatsoever.
It's nice of you to use your land for that. Yeah, because you're really not showing. You're not showing. I guess that would be the road. Wouldn't it? This would all
Yeah.
be concrete right through here, wouldn't it?
I would think so, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Nope.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? Okay.
I want to give a special thanks to Julie Shannon and Daniel O'Neill. They've been a great help with us on this project. So,
Yeah, we're pretty lucky to have them.
oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I'll make a motion. In the case of a CG rezone application by Canon Storage Systems, we have read the staff report and received testimony at the public hearing. We find ourselves in agreement with the staff findings cited in the staff report. I move that this item be recommended for approval.
Second.
Call the vote, please.
Wright,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Knuckles,
Yes.
Geis,
Yes.
and Clark.
Yes.
Good luck with your project. Thank you, guys. Item number 6, to hear a request by Crabtree Homes for a rezoning from CO Commercial Office to a SPUD with a R2 residential medium density zoning as base at 1100 and 1108 Cameo Drive. Who's here to speak on that today? Please state your name, Mr. Crabtree, and your address.
Tommy Crabtree with Crabtree Homes, 812 West Main, Yukon, Oklahoma.
Give us your sales pitch.
Okay, so what we're looking at is some, some upscale townhomes. We're looking at doing a SPUD where these would be individually owned, and so there would be a total of 14 units, and it's just we know we've done a lot of building in the Yukon area. We've had different various from single family homes, and we just think this is something from different things that we've looked at that would fit well in Yukon and something that it's needing.
You said 14?
14, yes.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I had that wrong, sorry.
How many did you say you were gonna put in there?
It'd be 14 units. Yeah, I can show you some exterior kind of pictures. These are kind of the exterior pictures of the units. The colors in the end may vary a little bit and stuff, but that's kind of the outside look.
Typical farmhouse style type. I mean, is that a
Yeah,
good generalization?
In our mind, it'll be a mix between brick and some stuff. Of course, some people may be familiar with, like we've done some things in downtown Yukon with the coffee shop right across from Sonic and stuff. So kind of a similar. There's some brick wainscot, but a mix between siding and masonry. And then the units themselves too would have same as like a housing addition too. I mean, we'll do like covenant and restrictions that require certain upkeep and have an architectural review committee dedicated for that as well. So, but yeah, and then there's kind of some additional kind of design stuff. We have there's a couple green spaces. These are just some kind of ideas that we have. There's two common areas. So, what we're picturing is something where you have fire pit area, something that people in that area. It's a community concept. And I think a lot of people are kind of familiar with the Wheeler area, of course.
Yeah. That
And
air park stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we're looking at. These are, like I said, they're going to be nice. That's kind of similar to, if you're familiar with our company, most of the product we do. It's going to be a nice product.
If you want to speak, then we'll open it up for discussion. So
Yeah.
let
Any
the
questions?
commissioners
If you
ask any
guys have
questions, and then we'll go
questions.
from there.
Yeah.
We'll get to you guys, I promise.
Where's the parking at? Am I missing that?
It's so the units have kind of a drive, they have a garage, but it's also kind of a U shape. There's some additional parking in the middle as well. Yeah. And I know, I think that was some, I think we had submitted this, and that I think that's in your packet as well. We wanted to come tonight, and the engineer's not here tonight, because I think there were some, staff, questions that then the engineer's gonna update, and then we'll be back next month. But we knew the letters had gone out as well, and we wanted to be here for the community and for you guys and to answer questions.
It's hard to get perspective on the pictures. Is the
is.
garage big enough to get a car in, or is it just for storage?
No, it'll be big enough for a car, but it's a single.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yes.
I guess I have a question for Danielle.
Yes, sir.
So, and I may be wrong on this, but for that acreage, by code, aren't you limited to 11 or units, or am I reading that wrong?
I will defer to Jessica. She's the one who did our staff
sorry.
report on that.
I could be wrong, so don't.
That's a great question. I will have to look in the code to find that. I know for the comp plan designation, they do exceed the density expectations. But again, that's a density expectation, and we do believe this is an appropriate land use for the property. But specifically for the number of units on that acreage, I'll have to look in the code.
And I was referring,
I
I'm sorry, I
don't-
was referring mainly to density.
To density?
I phrased that wrong, yeah.
I don't believe so. Not for this
Okay.
property, but the comprehensive plan, yes.
Okay.
Which is a suggestion.
And I may be wrong too. I think that's the difference with the SPUD, partly too, that you go ahead and you show everything that you're doing, and it's approved according.
To code, but it may not go along with.
It's to code, but then it's going to be specific. I mean, with the SPUD, it's showing everything from your screening walls to your density to everything. So versus it just being in a, like, I'm more familiar with like R1, of course, you get certain setbacks and everything that have to be met and required. As a SPUD, you put it together all as one full document, and yeah, I think that's the difference.
Yes, I would just like to add on top of that. So the SPUD, since the base zoning is going to, all of the regulations will apply except for what is specified within the SPUD document. So let's say, for instance, if he wanted to do different setbacks, that would be specified within the SPUD. If it is not explicitly stated within the SPUD, it reverts back to the base zoning district regulations.
Well, entertain me here. It's base zoning is commercial, so if he wanted to put a commercial sign up, he could, unless it's specifically stated no in the SPUD, right? Like, I'm trying to give perspective. Like, if anything varies from commercial, then it has to be noted.
So with
And I use
this,
signs because
with this PUD, it's using the base zoning of R2. And so with that being in the SPUD, they would have to do R2 for.
it would be base zoning R2, not base zoning.
That's
Correct.
correct. So yeah,
Yes.
we're rezoning
okay,
it, so
yeah,
the
yeah.
commercial zoning is going
Yep,
away,
yep, that
and the
makes
new
sense.
base zone is R2.
Okay.
I mean, I'm anxious to hear, I want to hear from other people too. Like, you guys build amazing things. So, everything you build is beautiful and it looks great. And someday maybe you can build me something. But we're going to have to talk cheap though. But my big thing I struggle with on this, and I know this hasn't been occupied or no one has built here in the past. I struggle just because Yukon is so restricted on how much commercial area we have. It's just one thing when we give away, or I say when we give away, when we rezone something, we never get, rarely does anyone come and say, hey, I've got residential here, I'd like you to rezone this to a commercial. And then I get some earnings I don't get. Someone gets earning potential out of that. That's where my brain is right now. I want to hear what other people say. I love, though, the design. I love the Wheeler Park idea of the thing, but I just wanted you to know where I'm looking at right now. But
Yeah.
I do love.
Well, and for a community, I get. I mean, you need taxable income to do infrastructure and improvements, things like that. So, I mean, I understand that side of it. I think there's some property that has been there, right close by it for a considerable time. I can't remember if it's called Cedar something, where the dentist office and a few things are, and there's lots. I mean, yeah, I know it's kind of one of those decisions that
I
you
know.
have to weigh. Yep. So, but yeah, I'll let everyone else kind of speak, and then if you guys have more questions, yeah, I can answer those.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've got some names on a list. I have two. Well, never mind. I just have Melissa. Melissa, you here to speak on this? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Barlow, and my husband Richard and I are both here. We live at 1008 Empress Circle. So I don't know if you have a map, but on the east side of this property, we own about 80%, if you will, or share that line there on that east side of that property. And so I'm a long-time Yukonite. I've lived here 40 of my 44 years, and we were really excited 19 years ago to move back to Yukon when our daughter was born, to raise her here where we were both raised. And we then 15 years ago sought to purchase a home in Kingsway. And I did a lot of research when we looked at 1008 Empress Circle where we currently live. And I did a lot of research on the commercial zoning there because we knew that we didn't want to buy that property if that zoning was something that would, at some point, because we knew that it would be developed, if at some point that was something that would hinder our property value. And so at that time, 15 years ago, we researched and found that that was gonna be what you guys now call commercial office. And so we knew that we're both employed during the day, and so we knew that if that was a commercial office property, and we definitely respect that zoning for that property. And so we knew that that would be inhabited when we were at work, and then we would come home and enjoy our backyard with our children while that property was potentially closed for the evening. And so we bought 1008 Empress Circle 15 years ago and spent a lot of money developing that. We've put in a pool, we've done massive upgrades to the backyard, and honestly, that's our forever home. We are longtime Yukon goers, our families live here, and we just really know that we wanted to raise our family here, and we've done that. But we know that we want to stay in this home and continue to raise our family, if you will, by having grandkids come over. And the thought of having a multifamily unit on the other side of that property was not something that we ever realized would be a potential, and now we're here. And so I wanted to speak to you just for a quick second so you could picture us in our backyard playing in our pool, while right on the other side of that fence is a 2-story townhome that has a window. And those people are now looking into our backyard. Those, we're not talking very far from our fence, not the 60 feet that they were talking about earlier. I know these are different zoning, but that was not ever in the plan because we knew and we did our research to know that this was zoned for that commercial office. Now, I'm not saying that we don't support that property being a commercial office space. I want you to know that we definitely respect that, and we know that someday this land will be developed. I think it's really important too that you know that I respect Crabtree Homes and the work that they do. They build beautiful properties. I just don't think that at this time multifamily units backing up to my property that I did research on and value your opinion on, I don't think that that is the appropriate placement for that, especially in our town that is seeking revenue from taxes. And I think as we look at safety for our community, roads, and all of the things that they encompass that tax base, we know that we need to keep that commercial property for that sake. So I thank you today for letting me speak on behalf of my husband and I and our neighbors that are here this evening, and hope that you will make the decision to keep that zoned commercial office. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else here that wants to speak on the item? Ed?
I'm not signed up, but I would.
It's
like to
okay.
speak.
You can jump on up and we'll get Eddie after you. How about that? If you would, sir, just state your name and your address for us, please.
My name's Darrell Manning. My wife and I own the home at 1109 Kingsway, which is one of the 4 properties on Kingsway that backs up to this proposed project. I'm the same as this lady. We researched, looked for a piece of property that would not be high density. We bought one of the larger lots because at that time we had 2 teenage daughters. I'm 76. I'm retired. I'm 100% disabled. I spend a lot of time in my backyard with my dogs. I don't like the idea of having a two-story building that can look into my backyard because we're restricted to a 6-foot fence. It does have some vegetation. And there are only 4 houses on that street that they're proposing to put 14 units in the same space at 4 houses as far as length of the property is in. In my opinion, that's way too high density to be allowed in that small space. Commercial property doesn't bother me back there because they close normally in the evenings and we still have our privacy.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It also affects our resale value. Because we directly impact that.
Thank you, guys.
And I think everybody.
Ma'am, if you
here
want to keep speaking.
has a house that's adjacent to that property.
If you'd like to speak some more, if you would step up to the podium so we can hear you.
I'm fine.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Ed?
Good evening. My name is Ed Eubanks. I live at 1104 Abbeywood. I am not directly impacted by this development going in. I'm in Kings Ridge, so I don't see it from my backyard. I feel for them that do. I think that's an issue that if I was there, I would draw issue to it. I don't. I look at it from the same perspective you were. I think cramming 14 houses into that tiny area takes away from an opportunity that a business could come in and bring tax dollars to our community, which would benefit all of us, not just one property owner or 14 property owners that are selling homes. I think we could all benefit from it by leaving it open and available to a business to come in and utilize that property. I don't know enough about the utilities in that area. I don't know how water's affected. I don't know how sewer's affected. I don't know what the lines are as far as impact that 14 tenants would have on that property versus 1 or 2 businesses on that property. That's something that's way over my head, but it's something that I would think about and I would factor in. I don't know what that would entail to bring that kind of density into that area. I don't have much more to say on it other than I look at it more from a tax dollar perspective. Like you were saying, there are very few opportunities for businesses in Yukon. I am a business owner in Yukon, and it's difficult for me. I know a lot of other business owners that want to come into Yukon. The space is just very limited, and to give up what little we have to put more housing on, I just don't think it serves a purpose there.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
I think he brings up a good point. I think, a few of us are involved with redoing the code, or not the code, but the comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan says we need more commercial land. We need to protect our commercial land. But then on the flip side of the page, it says we need more affordable housing. So you can understand where this is a tough issue for us, if you will. So do you gentlemen have, yeah, please, who's next? I think you know the drill. Name and address, please.
Yes. My name is Elin Wagner, and I live at 1105 Kingsway Avenue, which backs up to the property. The house, just for information, at 1101 Kingsway, that gentleman has passed away, so if he wanted to say anything about it, he's not here, but his son owns the home, but they're not here either because they're not in residence in Oklahoma right now, sort of. But anyway, I just wanted to say too that we also don't want a 2-story, basically, might be better than an apartment complex, I don't know. Looking over into my backyard where I have my grandchildren, my oasis that we've been there, I think 12 years, 12 years. And I would not really like to have that interrupted. We have some trees that have grown up there, but trees are, they block the view. They don't cause any disruptions. They don't have anybody looking over in there except the birds. So I just wanted to say we're not really for that either.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Shannon Nichols, we're at 1004 Empress. On the topic of affordable housing, what are we looking at for that? Because to me, like, beautiful homes, again, but I don't know that I would call them an affordable home for, like, I don't know that's just kind of for you guys mentioning that. But it's not renting, right? They're purchased. And you were talking about common spaces. We have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. From my understanding from the initial draw up there was going to be a common space pretty well like right on the other side of our fence where my 2 little kids play. In my head, I'm thinking, if we're thinking Wheeler District, are people going to be out there like fraternizing late with our little kids and our master bedrooms right there? Like if we're talking right on the other side of that fence, because I think it's going to have to be right on the other side of that fence to put 14 homes there, because that's a pretty small property. I guess those are my questions, like where we're looking at for common spaces and all of those kinds of things. Okay.
Go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah.
Speak to any of these if you'd like.
Well, and I think it kind of what has been brought up, and going back to what we do, it is, I mean, where we were looking at this is, and it's, and for the length of time I've lived in Yukon, because we even built some of the houses, last 5 lots in Kings Ridge, and I remember when those houses were, so some of them were 210, 250,000, and it's hard to believe when you're saying affordable housing. You know, we're even, and I know that's not Yukon, but at Mar-a-Lago, that's just down the street. I mean, it's hard for as a builder to, even in smaller houses, have anything under 400,000. So, yes, these units are going to be less as far on that end. They're going to be less than like product down the street in Mar-a-Lago. So there is. Because I look at that too. I've got a daughter that just graduated from OSU, and she's getting her first job, and where do you live? You know, like I don't want her in an apartment complex either. If her and 2 friends wanted to, you know, someone could own one of these units, someone could, you know, they would anyhow. So I know it is hard. I mean, you do have to try to have some sort of housing for people who are younger, and then same way too. You know, there's a lot of studies right now. When I go to home building conferences, of course, everyone's living longer as well too. So what they talk about are these units. A lot of people want to travel, do different things. They're selling their big house. You know, they have enjoyed Yukon like other people here in this room, but they're ready to sell their house that had a pool that was 3,000 square feet, because they want to travel some, but even in Yukon right now, if you were trying to buy something, you know, when you're trying to find something new and nice, that has some nice amenities, it's just hard to find something in a smaller package that has those things. So I understand both sides of it for sure.
Well, thank you for clarifying that, because I think I made the bad assumption that they were going to be rental properties. So
yeah, these are,
ma'am,
and if someone bought it, I mean, it's not that they may be able to do that, or, you know, I mean, there's not necessarily going to be a restriction on that end of it, but it's not really they are going to be built as far as to be individual units that someone can buy and own.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
This gentleman's next, and then we'll get to you, ma'am. Yes, sir. Thank you, Tommy.
Yeah.
My name's Kenneth Floyd. I live at 1301 Kingsway Court, which is the back of Kingsway, so I don't get to see it. I do pass by it every day going to work. It's not in my sight, but to me, that I've been by there several times. It's not a very big lot, and putting 14 2-story houses, I didn't know if there was a height restriction and how close you can get to their property line, how far back they got to be. But I can understand why they would want not to have a 2-story there. You know, and they talk about property, values going down because of it. I think you'll end up losing people that want to live in that neighborhood because there is that right behind it. That's not what they want. They don't want people staring down in their backyard. I think it's a lot of houses or a lot of townhouses for a small area. I think it would be better served as commercial. That's all I've got.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I know it's so formal, but
My name is Emily Manning. I live at 1109. You guys do realize the value of the homes in that Kingsway subdivision? You know that those owners take pride and ownership for their property? If you put that 14 building in there, who's going to take care of that property? 5 years down the line, it's not going to have the same value, and our homes aren't going to have the same value either because of that property being put in there. We're far better off with remaining a C. I won't live long enough to see my house depreciate big time, but it's not fair to people who live in Kingsway to have that go on. Thank you.
thank you, ma'am. Is anybody else? Yes, ma'am. I would suggest we bring up different points, though, at some point. And,
Oh.
you know, we understand the property value and the 2 stories, but if we have something else to speak about, that'd be great, too.
I just would like to see what the plat thing that you all are looking at looks like. I mean, he just showed a couple of pictures of the front, but I don't
What,
know.
the map? Like the map?
Yeah,
What
what
he's
the
talking
map
about?
looks like.
Sorry. Throw that up on
We
the
put it on
big
the
screen?
TV.
You got one, Daniel?
Look at you, you threw them a curveball. They're gonna try. Go ahead and look at them.
Yeah, you can go ahead and look at that.
We are going back to
We're getting-
1993 with the overhead
We're getting
projector.
overhead, that's way before that, but it's close.
I don't know, Melissa, did we have them back then? It might have been before that.
1973 maybe.
Yeah,
I was starting to
83,
say.
1983.
63.
I wouldn't know about that.
There's your big screen if you want to look behind you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that just shows a lot. I mean, there's just a few people that are affected, but we're affected big time.
Right.
Most of those houses affect mine and Emily and Daryl's property, and the ones on the side affect the other family's property, so that's, not very many of us, but it's a big effect for us.
Thank you. In the back? Then we'll go back to you, young lady.
I'm Sandra Reamer. I live at 823 Lancaster, so I'm in Ranchwood South. I look out of my back door, and I have seen this field since I've lived here. I see their home every Christmas, Halloween, whatever holiday it is. Excuse me. My house is not near what their homes are, but it's my home. I don't want to look at townhouses personally, and I don't think my neighbors do either. I don't think they're here tonight. Again, I'm repeating what they're saying. I think it's going to bring down property value, and I flat don't want to look at it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Would you mind putting that back up on the plat? Okay, so our backyard is the corner of common area E. What are we looking at putting in that space? Is it like, what's that gonna look like? Would you, like, I'm just wondering, my 2 small kids that play back there in that yard, like, is there gonna be like boozing around the fire pit? Like, that's where my head went when this all kind of started. Like, that worries me for my little kids, worries me for my sleep. 'Cause I'm right there too on that master. Our master is right there in that corner. And then my other point is on Cameo. Am I looking in the wrong corner?
No, you're not. That's correct.
It's huge.
Anyway, on Cameo, that's a pretty narrow road, and there's a lot of traffic that goes back there to all of the,
Assisted living.
Yes, the assisted living that's back there, and that was also my concern too, because it is such a small space with such high density, like where all these vehicles gonna go. I think that's gonna be an issue for Conrad Mar. I think that's gonna be an issue getting back to that assisted living. So, just to bring up another point.
I'm not sure that map, that plot is correct anyway, because, before we were like the second house that built in there. And just before we built, they redid that plot and expanded some of those lots because we have 100-foot lot. And there are really only 4 lots facing Kingsway Avenue. There's not 6 as that plot was showing.
That's 6 of what they're
They're-
planning to
yeah.
build.
That's what they're gonna build.
Yeah, not 6 individual
That's-
lots like yours, and an architect built this, so I'm not too sure we want to question that at this point, but I'm sure the city would do their due diligence if, in fact, this was incorrect, but, it's tough to think these aren't correct, but. Tommy, yes, sir?
Yeah. And to kind of answer the question of like who would maintain them, that's kind of one of the key points of if there's ownership where people buy them similar to a house versus it being like a large corporation that just owned this and they were just trying to get every rental dollar out of it or something like that. To answer one of the previous questions, I mean that is something that, you know, if you own it, you know, typically you maintain it for same thing, your own value as well. Yeah,
Well,
and
there-
there'd be an HOA.
There will be. That's what I was going to ask, if you plan on doing some HOA covenants and
Yeah,
things of that
some
nature.
HOA
Okay.
covenants and restrictions. And then going back to that same, kind of like your concern, and I understand as well. I mean, there's gonna be units within inside that kind of back up to that area. So yeah, we were planning on, you know, a nice common area that had a fire pit and stuff, but we can do restrictions inside of the HOA part of it too, because yeah, you wouldn't want people out there at 11 o'clock at night, you know, making, being too loud or something, so. But yeah,
These gonna be 2, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms.
mainly 3-bedroom.
How many?
3-bedroom. Yes.
So you're talking adding 14 times 3 or 4? That's
Not
really
4,
a lot
but
of
yeah.
people.
It's gonna be 3 cars per family. So where you gonna put all these cars?
Yeah. No, like you said, each unit has parking, you know, in my mind and in the different things that when we've gone, like I said, when we've gone to some different conferences through home builders and stuff like that, most of these units showing, you know, more on like your bell curve type stuff this is gonna be, you know, either someone with, either younger families starting, that may or may not have kids or probably, you know, someone that, is through that mid stage of life. So, while they are 3 bedrooms, you know, I don't think that they're going to be, you know, people with teenagers and things like that. I mean, it could be, but I don't think that that's, you know, in the typical use.
Hey, if we want to do this, we'll come up to this stand. We'll just do this like formally, please. We can have this back and forth interaction, but please just do it the right way.
Hi,
Yes,
Melissa
please.
Barlow again. Just a question, and this may be a city question as well, but would there be anything that would say that somebody couldn't come in and buy these properties and then rent them out on their own? I know we're not talking about these being rental properties, that they're gonna be for sale, but I don't know that the city has anything in place that says that somebody can't come in and buy these and then rent them out themselves, just like people rent out a home. And so I think we need to take that into consideration as well, even though these are going to be for sale. I don't think there's anything that would restrict somebody from coming in to purchase these and then renting them out themselves. I know the city has some restrictions on things such as Airbnb and VRBO and things like that, but that's a potential as well, should that ever change. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Do I need to say my name again? How many square foot are these proposed townhouses?
They're around 1,700.
1,700?
Yeah.
Commissioners, you guys have anything further?
We can do an open discussion, or we had enough open discussion? I like the concept, I do. I like the design of it. I do think we do need something like this in our city, but for me, I drove the area. It's already, there's some assisted living out there in the back there, so I'm concerned with the density, as well as back to Jeff's point of commercial property in Yukon is hard to find at this point, and that's kind of where I'm at with it.
That's why this is bittersweet to me, because you guys build beautiful
Yeah.
things, and everything you do is high quality and benefits Yukon. I totally get that. I mean, that is nothing against you. I really have a hard time with at this spot because it is commercial.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where my thought process goes. But I do love the concept. I love the designs, stuff like that.
I'm with you, Jeff, and I really want to support you as well on this. But for me, it's just that location.
Just one other thing, two things. I echo both you guys as far as saving the commercial part, but I live in Kings Ridge, so a couple of people that I know called me on this particular subject, and they echoed your concerns, that it was 2 stories looking down, and asked me to at least consider that when we voted on it. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I did get a couple calls on it.
You got anything, Lee?
I was just gonna ask if there's anything, like, if the deal breaker is the 2-story, is there anything we could do to help us with the screen area between the 2 properties? Like, because we just talked about having trees at one of the last projects, and but I don't know how the homeowners feel about trees in their yard versus, there's not room for a tree behind the new property. But I don't know how you guys feel about, because a tree today won't look the same as a tree in 5 years. But you might like it better in 5 years. So I don't know. I'm just thinking like that if there's a solution there, it's something we can move forward with.
You guys want to answer to that?
It's not so much just a 2-story, it's the density.
Ed, did you have something you wanted to say? Please step up to the podium.
I was going to speak on the trees. I thought about that also. I don't see how you could get enough height without also making it be an eyesore. And as far as trees go, you're going to have those so tied up against the fence or their homes, it'll become a maintenance problem for people on both sides, because you're going to have limbs. We get ice
close,
storms.
yeah.
They're going to be falling on fences or houses. I just don't see how getting something tall enough to make a difference in a second story is going to be feasible
Right.
with the limited space. I mean, if they decrease the amount of properties, possibly, but I don't think any sort of screening would be feasible in that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, there's not much backyard. I'm looking at the satellite view.
The reality is that if we leave it commercial, it can be rezoned to something else commercial on down the line. And I know that CO sounds appealing today, but when we talk about tax dollars, something more general like a coffee shop makes us more money than an office complex. I also believe that the density from these units would not be any more than an office complex during the day. You have people leaving work and coming home. It's not back and forth like you have a medical office there. So I think there's a lot of arguments for this, but I think, even to the common area, reality is your neighbors behind you could do the same things and have, bonfires on that line, if you will. So I have a hard time telling property owners what to do when it's the same thing at my house in a normal neighborhood. But I think all of the commissioners have hit on this, is that the reality is that we just have such little commercial in Yukon, and I'm torn because the comprehensive plan says both. we got into a heated debate when we rezoned a couple years ago from commercial to R1, and I've never forgiven myself for it because it just didn't work out right, you know. So I think it's clear we all love your properties for sure. I just think that urban overlay district, we really tried hard here lately to keep and protect that area, and I think that warrants this type of residential area, if you will. And we were conscious of that when we were going through that. I think we wanted to protect that for our town, for some more medium density residentials. But yeah, so.
I know there's some stuff that we still need to get from the Crabtree Company. And if we
need to make a motion, right? Some sort of a motion.
Yes.
So whatever that motion may be, but a motion needs to be made, and we do need to vote on something tonight. Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, I would think so. Roger, if somebody makes a motion, then we vote no on this, then is that done for that piece, or do we have to make, I know in the past we've had to make some other kind of.
You're recommending body only, but
Yeah.
the staff's report, you might want to defer to Jessica on that. I mean, I think they're saying that they have concerns about the application, want additional information. Is that right?
That's correct. It appears that the SPUD was drafted using the requirements
I
for
see
the
it now.
previous code. So there are many requirements that were not addressed in the SPUD, so we would like them to go back and address those and resubmit. So
Okay.
that
I
is our
just saw the
recommendation.
draft now. Okay.
And your suggestion is no actions? Is that your suggestion?
That's correct. No action today until we can get that additional information so that their submittal is in conformance with the code.
I'll make the motion. In the case of the R2 SPUD application by Crabtree Homes, we have read the staff report and received testimony at the public hearing. We find ourselves in agreement with the staff findings cited in the staff report. I move that no action be taken on this item until the applicant can resubmit with the requested corrections noted above.
A second.
Call the roll, please.
Right?
Did you say my name?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
I didn't hear you.
Sorry. Jones,
Yes.
Knuckles,
Yes.
Geis,
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
So then what does that do for the next one then? Because it would be to hear a request for the preliminary plat.
On this one, you could also do a no action. If you wanted to go through the hearing side of it, you could. But it's gonna be tied, the preliminary plat's tied to the SPUD.
Seems like we need to clear up the SPUD before we can get to the preliminary plat. Am I wrong in that?
You are correct on that. There's also some, items that need to be addressed on the preliminary plat that need to be addressed prior to being able to.
Tommy, Cindy, are you guys aware of the preliminary plat stuff that you need as well? Okay.
I'll make a motion. In the case of preliminary plat application by Crabtree Homes, we have read the staff report and received testimony at the public hearing. We find ourselves in agreement with the staff findings cited in the staff report. I move that no action be taken on this item until the applicant can resubmit with the requested corrections noted above.
Second.
Did you get that, Daniel?
Yes.
Call the roll, please.
Wright,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Knuckles,
Yes.
Geis,
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Item number 8, new business. Do we have any new business today? Number 9, open discussion. You guys have anything? Anything you want to say? We're in adjournment, and our next meeting will be October 14th.